Alright, hello everyone. This is the first video for a series which I will entitle Quick Economics for Debates, where I will be tackling a couple of economic concepts in brief for your use in argument construction. Trade agreements create insiders and outsiders. Let's break this down and understand what this means. A classic example to illustrate the concept of insiders and outsiders is the implementation of a minimum wage. When you impose a minimum wage, this is what we call a price floor, which functions as a minimum threshold that has to be met. Employers and companies have to meet this minimum threshold in order to comply with this law. Theoretically, all things else remaining the same, when a company has to raise their wages to comply with this threshold, there will be a group of workers that will suffer the consequences of cost cutting and will be laid off. This is what you call the surplus labor. The question then is, who are these individuals that remain? And one answer is to say, the insiders at the expense of the outsiders. And in negotiations for a minimum wage, this is almost always the members that are registered under a labor union, who typically are individuals that are willing to risk membership in that labor union, and thus are most likely composed of relatively more privileged individuals within a company. On the other hand, those who are averse from joining a labor union, those who are from minority backgrounds or even undocumented immigrants that cannot risk labor union membership, these are the first individuals that are laid off when a minimum wage policy is implemented. So of course, in this example, the insiders and outsiders concept supports one argument against a minimum wage policy. Let's now immediately apply this to international trade. Any trade agreement will include some preferential terms or conditions that apply to members of that trade agreement. One simple example would be the reduction of tariffs, which basically means reducing taxes that are imposed on goods and services that are traded. So members of ASEAN will reduce taxes on goods that they trade with one another. These are the conditions that allow insiders of that trade agreement to trade more and more with one another. It is cheap and affordable, and of course, it is also good for future political and economic relations. In short, there is trade creation. Trade that otherwise would not have happened happens because of the existence of a trade agreement. However, and this is the key concept I want to teach here, the trade-off is that outsiders of that trade agreement, that is, those who do not benefit from the reduction of tariffs, they are also affected by the overall change in trade that happens from this trade agreement. Efficient producers that would have otherwise been able to trade with the members of the agreement are now displaced because the reduction of tariffs from insider members makes their goods cheaper than the goods that these outsider countries are selling. In other words, this is trade diversion. Trade is diverted away from outsiders in order to preserve the trade agreement. So how do we weigh this in a debate? One example would be to look at the motion, this House prefers regional trade agreements over global trade agreements. Regional trade agreements create insiders and outsiders by prioritizing member countries at the expense of non-member countries. Government may say that this is a good thing, as these trade agreements may be more stable, they may be more context-specific, and that it reinforces stronger regional political and economic integration. On the other hand, global trade agreements are very difficult to maintain. They may be led by disproportionately powerful actors that do not act in the best interest of the region, etc., etc. Opposition may counter these arguments by saying that this insider and outsider dilemma worsens global cooperation on many issues. It causes stronger political divides between regions. It encourages future trade wars, again between regions. And it becomes far more difficult to share and trade technology in the future. Opposition may even argue that this trade displacement only leads to even more inefficient industries. Instead of promoting a fairer set of global norms that are better for developing countries' production industries. Of course, hopefully by now you realize that there are a lot of ways that you can play around with this concept, since this is just the beginning analysis of insiders and outsiders and how they interact in this setting. Alright, that should be it for today's video. Thank you everyone and have a great day.